I was buying ribbon when he said it. Pale blue, because my mother always liked pale blue, and because habits outlive reasons. I remember standing there with the spool in my hand, thinking I should check the width, when my phone buzzed, and my brother's name sat on the screen, like it always had, familiar, expectant, owed. He didn't waste time. He never did when he thought he was right. "My wife doesn't want you at our wedding," he said. A pause, then, as if adding a footnote. "You're pitiful." He said it gently, which was worse. Like he was reporting a scheduling conflict. Like this was a fact of weather. I said nothing. I don't know why that surprises people later. Silence has been my native language in that family for a long time. Silence is how I learned to keep things moving, how to smooth edges, absorb inconvenience, make room. "I figured you'd understand," he added, already moving on. "It'll just be easier." Easier for whom never needed to be asked. When the call ended, I stood there a moment longer than necessary. The ribbon was still in my hand. A clerk asked if I needed help. I smiled and put it back on the rack. Pale blue suddenly felt like a costume. On the walk to my car, I noticed how calm my body felt. No shaking, no heat in my face. That worried me a little. Anger, at least, would have been familiar. This felt like a door closing somewhere deep and administrative. I sat in the driver's seat and didn't turn the engine on. I thought about the last decade the way you might think about receipts, spread across a table, not in detail, just the total. The times I'd covered a payment because he was between things. The lease in my name because his credit was temporarily complicated. The honeymoon reservation I'd booked on my account because I got the points and it was simpler that way. The way simpler had become a synonym for me. I didn't feel righteous. I felt accurate. That afternoon, I went home and opened my laptop. The sun was still high. It felt strange that the world was behaving normally. I drafted an email to the property manager. I reread the lease. I had insisted on clauses years ago, back when insisting felt like being difficult, and I'd promised myself I would anyway. 30 days. Termination for misuse. No drama. I sent the message and attached the relevant page. The reply came quickly, professional and neutral, the way authority sounds when it isn't trying to impress anyone. Next, the honeymoon. I logged into the reservation. The names were there, his and hers, beneath my account, my email, my card. I hesitated, not out of sentiment, but because I wanted to be sure. This wasn't a tantrum. This was a decision. I canceled. The confirmation page blinked into existence, polite and final. A refund timeline appeared. I closed the tab. I didn't call my brother. I didn't text. There is a kind of restraint that looks like passivity from the outside, but is actually the opposite. I was done negotiating my presence. The first call came an hour later. I didn't answer. The second came from my mother, and I let that go too. I wasn't punishing them. I was preserving the line I'd finally drawn. You can't draw a line and then spend the afternoon explaining it without smudging it into nothing. By evening, messages stacked up. Confusion, then irritation, then a sharpened politeness that meant someone had realized something concrete had shifted. A voicemail from my brother arrived just after dinner. His voice was different. Not loud, not pleading, careful. "There's been a mistake," he said. "The lease people called. And the hotel. Look, we need to talk." Need is an interesting word. It assumes continuity. I didn't call back. The next morning, I packed a box with the things of mine that were still at his place. A spare jacket, a book I'd lent and forgotten. I labeled it and left it with the doorman. I asked him to have my brother sign for it. He nodded, unfazed. Buildings understand boundaries better than families do. I went to work. I answered emails. I sat in meetings. Authority doesn't always arrive with a uniform. Sometimes it's just the quiet certainty that paperwork carries weight. Around noon, my mother finally reached me. I answered because I didn't want this to become a story about cruelty. I wanted it to remain what it was, an exit. She didn't yell. She asked what I'd done, as if the doing was the problem, not the years that led there. "You could have talked to us," she said. "I did," I replied, and surprised myself with how steady it sounded. "For years." There was a pause. In it, I could hear her deciding whether to minimize or to confront. "Old reflexes die hard. This will cause trouble," she said at last. "I know." She waited for me to apologize. I didn't. We hung up with the kind of goodbye people use when they expect to speak again soon. I knew better. Distance, to be effective, has to be irreversible. The wedding happened without me. I know because someone told me later, like a weather report. The honeymoon did not. The lease ended on schedule. Consequences moved forward without commentary. Weeks passed. The silence settled into something almost peaceful. I noticed how much energy I had when it wasn't being siphoned off to manage other people's expectations. I noticed how often I reached for my phone out of habit and then set it down. I'm not a hero in this version of the story. I didn't save anyone. I didn't teach a lesson that transformed a family. I chose myself with a kind of professional calm that still surprises me when I think about it. Sometimes, late at night, I feel the echo of what was lost, not the relationship as it was, but the idea of it. The hope that if I stayed useful enough, quiet enough, I might finally be welcome without conditions. That hope had been pitiful. Letting it go wasn't. I keep the confirmation emails in a folder I never open, not as trophies, as proof. Proof that when the moment came, I didn't beg for a seat at a table that had already decided I didn't belong. I stood up, pushed my chair in neatly, and walked out into a life that, for the first time, did not require my absence to function.